Richard Millett, political analyst. I think the biggest problem goes back to 1948 and the people who propagate this myth of an ethnic cleansing, like yourself, Mr. Hart, like Professor Pape.
We're talking nonsense, aren't we?
There is no... Well, you haven't provided any evidence. You can just come out and say...
I just told you, I grew up on the result of ethnic cleansing.
Can I speak?
My evidence is in a two-volume book, his evidence is in a one-volume book.
It's okay to say it happened. It's okay to say it happened, but there is no... You've no kind of plan to say, yes, the two peoples were at war. Israel was at war. 600,000 Jews... Are you telling me that they can honestly ethnically cleanse 750,000 Arabs while fighting 5 Arab armies? It's the biggest joke, and a lot of people have bought this myth. And that's what it all goes back to. 1948, you're trying to relive 1948 based on a myth.
I think it's important to understand that even before one Arab army entered Palestine, already 300,000 Palestinians were expelled. So Israel did not have to fight 5 Arab armies while ethnically cleansing the Palestinians. Half of those who were ethnically cleansed were cleansed before the 15th of May, 1948. Again, I'm bewildered by the fact that outside of Israel, these facts are still denied, whereas inside Israel we don't have that debate anymore. The debate in Israel is about the moral implications. Benny Morris says very clearly. He does. No. Okay, I heard you. You will hear me. This is not Israel. This is England. Let's try this. Okay, you go back to Israel. You have your say.
I'm British.
You are. Well, anyway, as Benny Morris said in a very famous interview to Haaretz, yes, there was an ethnic cleansing in Palestine in 1948. 2, as Hayo quoted him, I'm very sorry to say that the biggest Israeli mistake was not to have a complete ethnic cleansing. Thirdly, he said, you can check the quotes. Thirdly, well, we know these tactics. Come on, guys, this is not Israel. The third point he made was, no, listen, I know these tactics. I know these tactics to overtalk. I want the protection here. You stop this. No, not true. You may be right that I'm not true, but you'll try and be polite and listen for 2 minutes without interrupting.
Well, I haven't
interrupted you.
I want to talk about Dennis Ross.
You'll talk about whoever you want.
2001. Let's talk about Camp David, when the Palestinians were offered 91% of what they asked for. 91%
also do not allow anyone else to
territory. It's the same violence.
It's the same violence.
Please.
It's the same
91%.
There is no difference between verbal violence and physical violence, and no wonder
listen,
the Zionist
we cannot
Federation
understand what anybody is
represents.
saying. Please stop it. What is very sad is that you are now seeing why peace is, I think, impossible. Because
it's possible.
You have people who are beyond reason.
The people of Israel are much more reasonable than their spokespersons in Britain. This is why we have hope.
You wrote a book called
because
Zionism,
the Zionist Federation in Britain is ultra-Zionist compared to the basic impulses and people of Israel who want to live with peace with the Palestinians.
But you don't
don't be pessimistic because of what you hear.
You want one state.
The lady
you want to see the end of the Jewish state.
The lady at the back.
Of course I do. Of course I do.
The lady at the back.
That's irrelevant.
My parents were born in Jaffa. They were Palestinians, Christian Palestinians. And in 1948, they were expelled from their homes. They did not choose to leave their home and say, bye-bye, have my home, I will go somewhere else. Nobody chooses to leave his home. Name me anybody in this room who will choose to leave his home and walk away. Excuse me, let me finish. Now, my parents, who live in Jordan, have no right to return. Although Israel is very democratic and all of that, have no right to return to where they were born, while every Jewish person all over the world have the right to go back to Israel, but people that were born there have no right to return. And, excuse me, everybody says that Israel is so much pro-peace. If Israel is so much pro-peace, why the right to return was never addressed? Why people who were denied their homes have no right to return?
Can I ask Jonathan to answer that question?
Every single country makes rules about who can come in. If you look at the position, look at the position of ethnic Germans. People who have German grandparents are allowed to live in Germany and others aren't. Every single country makes rules, and the right of return for Jews is a rule that the Israeli government makes.
Let me first of all deal with that point of Jonathan. Firstly, I don't think actually Germany is a very good example to give if you actually think about it.
Because it disproves your case, Tony.
No, don't interrupt me, Jonathan. Try and learn some manners. The second point is that no state in the world, although they may admit ancestors, although I'm not an ancestor, I'm Jewish, no state in the world says people who are born in that country and leave cannot come back, and those who have never been born or even visited that country have an automatic right. Now that is a difference. The second thing I want to say is about the Jewish state. I am a supporter of one state, because no one advocated in South Africa 2 states. 2 states means Jews cannot live with Arabs. I do not accept that. It's a concession to the racist paradigm.
Why don't you tell that to the Muslim countries who do not allow Jews in? Virtually every Muslim country in the world now is Judaized.
How many synagogues in Saudi Arabia?
It's no good shouting,
How many
please.
synagogues in Saudi Arabia?
What a Jewish state!
Pakistan.
What a Jewish state
In
means.
Yemen.
How many synagogues in
You're
Pakistan?
Jewish.
Tony,
Then you
please,
sorry,
cool it.
My apologies.
Who hasn't asked a question?
My name is Antoine Rafoul. I have a question for Professor Ilan Papi. This talk about 2-state and 1 state, I think the talk about 2-state solution is all but dead in the ground, in my view. We already have a 1 state. It's historic Palestine, except it's occupied and it requires a regime change. Yeah.
Antoine, I agree with you. I said before in the previous program, I think it was, that Israel rules Palestine with 13 different legal systems. And all these legal systems discriminate Palestinians just because they are Palestinians. Nothing else. This is a racist system. And therefore, I think that there is a 1-state reality in Israel and Palestine today. And the kind of 2-state solution that even is offered by President Obama today is not going to alter that reality, unfortunately. All it will do is create official Bantustans for the Palestinians, whereas now they are an informal Bantustans. And this would be a recipe for the continued conflict. It is amazing to hear Americans and Brits, I must say, talking about in a very lofty way about Arabs and Jews and saying, you know, you guys cannot live together. You should really live in 2 separate cages. Face it, you're Arabs and Jews. I mean, right? You unlike us in Britain, we can live together in 1 state. We can all have civil rights. We can all have human rights. But you there, you should have something different. I heard it before, during the colonialist period. They always told us we're not developed.
We've got to bring it to an end.
Sorry.
But I'm tempted to ask what is possibly a very silly question. And I want a yes or a no only from each member of the panel and the audience. No, one word only. Did we succeed or did we not in shedding more light than heat? Jonathan?
I think debate is always very important.
No, one word. Carol?
Yes.
Yes.
Ilan? No. Audience? Yes, no. Hands up, yes. Hands up, yes. Hands up, no. That actually tells you how difficult this conflict is. Now, in conclusion, please, I want to say a few words about a number of institutions which were invited to have a representative at this debate, but were not interested. They include the Board of Deputies of British Jews, CST, the Community Services Trust, the Jewish organisation that monitors anti-Semitism in the UK, the offices of the Archbishop of Canterbury and the new Cardinal for the Roman Catholic Church, and the trustees of the BBC and its Director General. To them, I personally have this message. If there had been open and honest debate about anti-Semitism in the 1930s, Hitler might not have come to power, and 6 million Jews might not have been exterminated. Silence in the 1930s was in effect complicity in the obscenity of the Nazi Holocaust, with the danger today of anti-Israelism or anti-Zionism turning to anti-Semitism. Silence would again be complicity. And I'll close with this. In fact, there are two monsters on the prowl in the Western world. There's anti-Semitism and there is Islamophobia. We need together to slay both of these monsters. That's what I would wish for. To the panel, to the studio audience and to our viewers at home, I say thank you. From this heart to all of yours, goodbye until the next time.